Hello, folks. Welcome to the Reason RX podcast. Back again. Hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to talk about something important to the human animal, to health, to athletics, to education. We'll focus on athletics, but remember it's important for cognition, attitude, thinking, like in the book Spark by Dr. John Rady. Good book. I'll put a link in the show notes. There's a lot of research about how exercise movement helps us think better. It helps lower behavior problems in schools. It helps people focus, have a better attitude, learn better. So while we're focusing on the athletics, remember why we're doing that. Very important. Some elementary schools might want to take away recess. Unfortunately, that's happening nowadays. In part, there's liability stuff. In part, it's thinking that if we spend more time studying, the grades will go up. But that's based on, I think, people have different ideas. But some of that, a lot of it, all of it is based on the idea that we're linear systems. So with a little more increment of studying, we can do a little better on tests. But that's an invalid idea. We are nonlinear, dynamic, biological feedback systems, rational animals. Not necessarily, of course, people aren't all rational in the sense of like being good, but, moral, but in our basic nature, the way our mind works, it's like a reasoning mind, at least metaphysically, even if someone doesn't practice it so well. But we're nonlinear and dynamic, and there's feedback, so we need to get that exercise in. Take away some time from studying and exercise, and that'll actually help you do better. Or with sleep, we can't spend more time studying and expect grades to do better if sleep is compromised. There's all this nonlinear feedback stuff going on, so when we sleep, we do better. But let's dig in. So today we have the athlete, coach, ex-pro athlete, humorist, podcastist, nutritionist, everythingist, Brad Kearns, joining us to talk athletics, exercise, movement, what we can do to do better. High school athletes, everyday people, schools. Would you say hi, Brad?
Michael, it's a pleasure to be on. I love that setup. We have so many important topics to discuss. That aspect of getting the students exercising is near and dear to my heart. I used to run a nonprofit program called Running School, and we'd come into elementary schools and put on this exciting day of athletics, distance running, sprinting. We'd race and time people and have them aspire to reach the fitness gram standard. You might be familiar with the old presidential fitness standard, but they have research showing that they want kids to have a baseline level of competency in endurance exercise, aerobic exercise. And we'd put on an obstacle course in the afternoon, and it was all exciting with bells and whistles. And then we'd, leave and go to the next school, and we'd visit schools 3 or 4 times a year. But we were trying to instill the importance of outdoor physical activity, and the program went really well for a long time, and we served about 5,000 students a year in the different elementary schools. But you notice that if you're not dramatically emphasizing it on a regular basis with cheerleaders on every campus that really believe in fitness and live a healthy, fit lifestyle, things have a way of slipping through the cracks. And if the teacher in the individual classroom is not, highly devoted to these ideas and this, emerging science that exercise is directly correlated with cognitive function, they have research from the Kaiser Family Foundation that the test scores and the physical fitness are directly correlated. And so the unfit kids also perform poorly in the classroom. So there's all this compelling evidence that kids need to move throughout the day, but the academic pressures get in the way. the lack of belief systems shared by the adults in their lives get in the way. And of course, digital stimulation technology, the ability to be entertained indoors in a sitting position all day long, has really destroyed the physical fitness of American youth. In California, the research that we cited for FitnessGram, 40% of the population fails the basic bare minimum standard of can they complete a mile in a reasonable length of time, such as a brisk walk. And, that's almost half the population is completely unfit. And what we also noticed in these in the program was that at the front of the pack, you have, these extremely highly performing young children who are into accelerated athletic experiences. They're wearing their competitive soccer team jersey to school, and they're winning the races and dominating and getting all the accolades. And so it's a distinct split between kids and families who have a commitment to fitness and healthy eating and all the things that go with it. And then you have a larger population where there's just no positive influence at the school, at the home, anywhere. And it's pretty tragic because you can see this, divergence happening where only a small percentage of the culture is escalating in our commitment to healthy eating, exercising, and, reading the great books that you cited, and, shopping at Whole Foods Market and the natural foods market that have alternative products from the crap that we've been shoved down our throats by the large food conglomerates. And we need to, kind of pick up the pace and get more people on board with basic commitment to healthy living, not super duper athletic or traveling on your soccer team or your volleyball team and doing that crazy stuff. And if that's their route, that's fine. But just to get outdoors and move a little bit. And so that's I'm glad to give a little spiel about that, because I saw it firsthand just how real and tragic this is. And then the stats of childhood obesity correlating with adult obesity talk about liability. You mentioned the word liability. They don't want kids falling and scraping their knee and suing the school. But the big liability is raising an unfit population, and the healthcare costs of that are tremendous.
True. Amen. And maybe to tie it even more, I mean, that's already tied, really made real, brought home. People can see that in the modern situation to the current situation. 16 December 2020, at least for those of y'all listening around now, we're in COVID quarantine. You look up that, one reason, or I shouldn't say a reason, a factor that affects people getting it and suffering from it and people dying is vitamin D status. And that's an effect in our culture. If you get outside, as you say, it's outdoor physical activity, not just physical activity, hiding from the sun, hiding from the electromagnetic spectrum we're made to be in, from gravity and everything. Get outside, fresh air, in nature, sunshine, etc. Cold exposure sometimes. But get outside, exercise, you get the vitamin D, your vitamin D status will be better. If you do get COVID, you're going to fight it better, and you're much less likely to die. There's even stats on that. People can look it up. I'll try to put links in the show notes if I remember. Maybe I need to write that down in the email. But there's a much lower rate of those things being in ICU or dying if your vitamin D status is up, and that means getting outside. And you mentioned the diabetes, obesity, things like that. There's also a strong correlation, if not causation, involved in people dying from COVID and comorbidities. So these chronic diseases, they come about from unfortunate aspects of our culture that lead to bad lifestyle, bad diet, bad movement practices. These lead to the chronic diseases, which make us more at risk of getting COVID and really being affected by it. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't hear that much talk about that on the news, man. All we're talking about is masks and distancing and staying away from the virus. which is all well and good and
Yeah.
very important.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a guest on my show, the Get Over Yourself podcast, named Dr. Ron Sinha, old
Cool.
friend of mine, and he's on the front lines fighting this battle and treating patients in California. And he said, there's two factors at play here, and in regard to COVID and the spreading of the pandemic. And the first one is called the viral load, and that's when someone sneezes on you, or you go to a religious gathering or a concert and break the rules and get exposed. So the viral load comes with the droplets, airborne droplets that someone else is sneezing in your vicinity or what have you. But the second part of the equation, and the one that's necessary for the virus to take hold and make you sick, is the cytokine load. That's the response of the immune system. And if the cytokine load is inappropriate, as what happens when the person is not metabolically healthy or well conditioned aerobically because this particular virus attacks the cardiovascular system, the lungs, and then it enables it to take hold in the body. So if you have strong aerobic conditioning and strong metabolic conditioning, in other words, your metabolic health, your ability to burn fat, and all those things that go hand in hand with diabetes, obesity, things that show adverse metabolic conditioning. If those two things are strong, your chances are far better. And of course, we aren't two medical experts here debating the various severities that happen. It seems somewhat to be random at times, but I think basically we have to protect ourselves in every way possible, and one of them is getting outdoors.
Yeah, getting enough sleep.
Yeah, I mean the leaders have done they fought a tough battle. They didn't really know what to do. We didn't shut down fast enough. Then we shut down too much. Then we opened back up. All those kind of things are really challenging. But the thing that disappointed me most was way back when the mayor of Los Angeles closed the hiking trails in the city.
Wow.
Because he wanted to stop the spread of COVID, which is, absolutely insane, ridiculous. There's extremely minimal evidence of outdoor transmission anywhere on the globe. It's all, shown up with this indoor tight spots and large gatherings. But, closing the hiking trails just as a symbolic gesture shows that we're completely out of touch with, the true risks and ways to mitigate it by being healthy and getting outdoors and hiking and having those trails packed full with people, of course, passing by gracefully at a distance or wearing the mask when they come in contact with a tight trail. But yeah, that's my rant on that.
Yeah, agreed. We should be encouraging people to get vitamin D, get outside, get on the trails, exercise, sleep. I'll put a link in the notes so folks know. People talk about vaccines. Hey, the vaccine will come out. We're all saved. But a vaccine can work no better than the immune system works. And if you don't get enough sleep, it's not going to help. You can look at the scientific literature. When you're sleep deprived, your immune system responds less to the vaccine. So you might get 50 or 70% of the response that you'd get if you were getting enough sleep. And if it's really poor sleep, then you're really not getting anything much response at all. And then people think they're getting a response and they're not. So they're actually probably helping to spread disease if they're sleep deprived. So very important factor. As we say, we're nonlinear dynamic feedback systems. We're not simple linear things like get a vaccine and you're okay or whatever. Now, on this cytokine load thing, isn't that one problem that causes people to die with the flu? It's not the flu as such, but it's a bad immune system response to the flu. They got a cytokine storm, and that's what ends up killing them.
Yeah, from my understanding, right. Yeah, the immune system is a pretty delicate, dynamic thing, and you have to have the exact appropriate response, right? I mean, there's so many autoimmune conditions out there. Those are a lot of them diet related, where the body is literally attacking itself because it's an adverse response of the immune system. That's pretty much what a sneeze is the an autoimmune response to the allergen. And again, pretty simple. Just simple takeaways is do the best you can to stay healthy and stay away from the viral load, of course, by wearing masks and social distancing. But to hear it isolated is a little frustrating when we know there's a big picture here too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so there's a lot we could talk about that. Immune system, cytokine storm, diet, and all this stuff. But we'll focus on some of the athletics. So much to talk about, so little time. And what's your background in athletics? What do you do now? Athletics, coaching, all that.
Oh my gosh, Michael, it's been my life since I was a little kid. And
Cool.
I grew up in that era before digital technology and mobile technology. So just like anyone who's, let's say, over age 35 or somewhere around there, we can all nod our heads and reference that lifestyle of a different era where we were outdoors playing all day until the dinner bell rang or what have you. So
my mom used to ring a cowbell. She got a cowbell.
For real, yeah.
Yeah, really.
Mostly that's just an expression, but in Michael's case, his mom really did ring the cowbell.
It's a family joke. It's true.
Yeah,
she still has it.
Love it. Yeah. So, I got really serious about running in high school and was around some really great peers that were inspiring, and we kind of went on this journey together. I raised up to a national ranking level when I was a teenager.
Wow.
In the mile. And I went off to Division I and,
cool.
Dreams of being a long distance runner in college. But I got destroyed by the system, which is really sadly still in place today, where the typical collegiate endurance running program will just, work these kids too hard, not respect all the other life stress factors they have, such as heading off to school in a new environment and all these kind of things. So I was repeatedly sick and injured, like 5 seasons in a row, where I had an illness that brought me down for weeks. I had a stress fracture. I had knee injuries, shin splints, and I just fell apart. And that was, my first turning point as a young person to reflect further on, what I was doing with my competitive intensity and my desire to win and compete and do the best I could. And I was so motivated and focused and driven and dedicated, and I'd get up and I'd do whatever, the coach said. But then, falling apart and shaking my head and being disgusted with the whole experience, I realized that you have to get smart. You have to have a big picture perspective where you are focused on healthy dietary habits, sleeping habits, balancing all forms of stress in your life, not giving in to peer pressure and the negative competitive vibes that go on a lot of times in large training groups where you're trying to out macho the other person and try to express your ego demands instead of keeping your ego in check. So that was a nice starting point for a different journey when I discovered the sport of triathlon when I was still in college. And I loved it. I was better adapted to it than running because there's less stress on the body. And I really enjoyed, trying to build my competency in the other events of swimming and biking. Of course, I had the running down, but I wasn't running as much. And so I wasn't getting injured because I was pedaling my bike all day, which is not predicting of injury. Same with swimming. And it was so much fun that I decided that it would be more fun than a career. So when I graduated college, I went to work for the world's largest accounting firm. I only lasted about 11 weeks. I was miserable. I hated it. The suit and tie just didn't work for me. The rush hour commute in downtown Los Angeles to the tall building, I just, I saw my life passing in front of me. Like, this is not what I'm destined for. And so I quit. And I proclaimed my intention to become a professional triathlete. And back then in the mid 80s, it was kind of a joke because the sport was so small, there really wasn't any professional opportunity. A few guys were making money on endorsements and winning the Hawaii Ironman in the old days, Dave Scott and Mark Allen and, a couple other guys were pretty prominent. But the sport was growing and building and picking up across the world. And so I just dreamed of, this opportunity to push and challenge myself and try to compete with the best in the world. And so I had a really beautiful, pure approach to the sport where I'd go out there and I'd train in the way that my body told me was the right thing to do that day. I didn't have these unhealthy influences that we might have today, from overly quantifying everything and looking at your power meter and seeing if your bike ride is as good as yesterday's, or having coaches interfering with, giving you too much exercise and too much planning. And so I was a really intuitive athlete. I was freewheeling. I'd take what my body gave me each day and nothing more. And all these things served to really benefit me. And so when I was just in my first year as a rookie professional, I was kind of an unknown guy, and I was racing around at the back of the professional pack, but I was getting better and better and better with this natural training method. And then at the end of my first year on the pro circuit, I went to this huge race at the end of the year, and I upset the two top-ranked guys in the world out of nowhere. And so when I crossed this finish line, it was a crazy experience, because I was just in my own world all day during this race. I wasn't worried about competing with these guys because they were so much better than me that I didn't even dream about it. But it was a really hot day out in the desert in Palm Springs, California, and all these people started to fall apart and pull over to the side of the road, and I was just going like a freight train. And when I got to the front, I ran like I stole something for the final 6-mile event, and it was, a life-changing experience. When I crossed the finish line, I was mobbed by the officials and the media, and they had two questions for me. The first one was, "What's your name?" And the second one was, "Did you complete the entire course?"
I was going to ask, did you cheat?
Some dude showed up at the finish line in front of all these prominent athletes. But that single experience proved to me that my journey was legitimate, that I did have a chance to pursue a career as a professional, because I had just, reached the highest level, the best performers. And that was really wonderful. But, the rest of the story is, this success that I had at the outset, coming from this natural and pure approach where I just love what I was doing, and I love being outside of the tall office building and out on the roads and trails and doing something physical and outdoors and traveling around and competing for the pure love of the competition, rather than trying to go and win money, because I wasn't good enough to even dream of that stuff yet, but I was still in the mix and doing the best I could myself. Then once you ascend to that level, now people are starting to pay attention to me. Now people are paying me to endorse their products and expecting results from me. And so now I start to let the fears and the pressures and the judgments of the outside world work into the mix. And so then if I have a workout that's not as good as I expected, or if I feel tired one day, I get stressed and nervous and anxious about it. I make bad decisions in training, and I go into that overtraining pattern, which is so common, especially amongst the endurance athletes. So I had to learn the hard way from reaching this high level and then struggling to stay up there, because it's so difficult to compete at that level and deal with all those pressures and business aspects of being a professional athlete. So I finally had to, let go again and recapture and ask myself, what was the real reason that I'm doing this? Go back to my roots of being that person that loved being outdoors and challenging the body, and also taking care of the body on days when you're tired and not meant to really push yourself hard. So that awakening had to occur actually, more than a few times, where I continually have to recalibrate and release the attachment of my self-esteem to the outcome from what I was doing. So I call that having a pure motivation, where you can compete really hard, you can want to win, you can be competitive. All those things are allowed. I wanted to win really badly, and I was a very tough competitor on the race course. I would try to pass the guy with all my heart and soul, right? But when the race is over, you kind of have to let go and still find a way to be happy, even if you have a disappointing result, and get up the next day with a smile on your face and an eagerness to continue to push your body and continue on that journey of trying to be the best you can be as an athlete. So I try to share that message. Like, the best thing I learned from my journey as a professional athlete is that results happen naturally when your motivation is pure, instead of when you try to force things or bring your ego and your human frailties and insecurities into the mix.
And I think something maybe in a similar vein comes up in comedy. I was reading something about that, how some stand-up comics, it's so stressful for them because they want people to laugh, I think, and you got to kind of bare your soul in a way you might not in other things, because you're risking, people could boo you, and they will. They'll be disappointed, they'll boo you, or you can make them laugh. And I think in some cases, I don't know if that's actually the cause, but someone had some famous comic, I think, had a nervous breakdown on stage because of something like that. But I don't know if it's exactly that. People have nervous breakdowns for different reasons. Maybe there was something else going on. But at least what I read, they were claiming that's the thing, the nature of being a comic that led to it. But still, I can see the stress in different people. Others report it. Steve Martin and other people, how stressful that can be. But yeah, when they release, like you say, just relax, let it go. You can't let that get to you. Then you'll be better off on stage and off stage, or performing and not performing athletically.
I like that analogy. I'll go with the comics analogy.
Yeah,
Dax
cool.
Shepard has a really popular podcast, Armchair Expert. He's an actor, and he said that same freeing feeling of going into auditions and not giving a crap about whether they give him the part or not, and realizing, like, this is me. You may like me for this role and you may not, but I'm going to bring the heat and be the best that I can be myself. And I think same for anybody in any competitive setting or any high pressure setting. And the common public fear, the number one fear of Americans is speaking in public, right? And getting up and giving a presentation. And of course, I've done, hundreds of those in my life. So
Cool.
I feel like it's not something that makes me nervous, or that I just relish the opportunity and I look forward to it and I have no problem doing it. Of course, that comes from experience. But I think for everybody, being able to get up there and not really, be hanging on what people think of you or how the presentation is going to go over. You've been asked to do something, you do it with all your heart and soul. I used to give talks to groups of athletes, and once in a while I'd show up, and it was a shock because it was standing room only and there's 200 people there and they're
Cool.
ringing the walls. And I'm like, right on, man. We got some energy in this room. Are you ready to get into this? Let's talk about triathlon training. And then other times, I didn't qualify it properly or whatever. And I'd drive somewhere and show up to give a talk, and there was like 3 people. And, the host would be like, well, Steve said he was coming. Let's give him 5 more minutes. Let me call him on his cell phone. And I'd sit down with that group and I'd be like, you know what? We are really going to have an awesome experience here because it's going to be super interactive because it's such a small group. So I look forward to the benefit of this occasion this evening, just as I do when I walk in and get the standing room only crowd and all the electric energy and the thing that gets you pumped up on stage. But when there's 3 people there or 10 people, I'm like, hey, pull up a chair. Let's get closer here. Let's
Cool.
get in a circle. And why don't you start by introducing yourself, and we'll go around and it'll just be a different experience. So I learned not to judge the number of people in the room, the value of the presentation. Because if you can change one life in that small group,
True.
or someone, walks away with like, you know what, I'm going to change my approach thanks to what you told me, and I'm going to preserve my health and improve as an athlete. And our direct connection that night, which is maybe less enabled when there's 200 people there, I walk away with a smile and a sense of satisfaction. And that's a tough place to get to. Especially when the world is so competitive and so judgmental, and the economic consequences of what we're doing are so highly emphasized, and so you feel like you're not good enough unless your Instagram following is in the 6 figures, and if it's in the 6 figures, you want to go 7 figures, and all that stuff where we're always thinking ahead rather than appreciating the process. And boy, as an athlete, when you get out of that winning mindset and you get caught up in your ego or the measuring, judging forces, you will get your ass kicked on the race course. And that was the most valuable experience for me, is to know that it wasn't just about pressing on the gas pedal every day in training, but I had to have that positive mindset, that calm, quiet confidence, rather than that nervous energy and all those things that are required for success. You have to sometimes get out of your own way and just say, hey, I'm just going to go for it, and not judge it so much, and not be in so much self-judgment too.
Yeah. And some of the stuff you were talking about before, let me ask, like, what was your mile time in high school and college?
So in California, I made to the state finals in the mile. My best time was 4:19.
Sweet.
And when I was in Junior Olympics, the National Junior Olympics, I ran a 4:06 in the 1500 when I was 16 years old in the youth division or whatever. That's not, elite. And there were guys that had so much more talent than I, and were just so amazing in long distance running, that I was just, someone who, had some good success in high school, probably was, hoping to do better in college. But I think my calling really was triathlon because the complexity of doing the three events, I
Mm-hmm.
was really well adapted to that. I was state champion in the time trial in college on the bicycling team, and I joined, and that very same year, my first year on a bike, I was able to pedal really fast and show that strength and that wattage output power that not a lot of runners can transition over because maybe they don't have the build or they just
Yeah.
can't adapt to a new sport really quickly. So people, you got to continue to find new competitive outlets. And what's interesting for me is that after my 9-year career as a professional, I retired when I was 30 years old. I was fried. I was exhausted. It was
Wow.
a really arduous journey traveling around the world and doing that many races. But now into my adult life, I'm 55 now, so that was a long time ago, and my goals have completely transitioned over into things that are more, power and explosive oriented. So I like sprinting,
Hmm.
high jumping. I broke the world record, the Guinness World
Cool.
Record in speed golf for the fastest single
Cool.
hole of golf ever played when I was 53 years old. And I
Cool.
trained really hard for that. I'm a professional speed golfer, so we play this crazy sport where you keep score in a golf tournament setting, but they also time your trip around the course. So the players are running with a small little bag or just carrying a handful of clubs and actually moving very quickly through the 18 holes because the clock is on them. So you add your minutes and your strokes together
Hmm.
and you get your speed golf score. So you still have to play good golf, and it takes longer to hit the ball sideways all over the place. So the best players in the world, Scott Dolly, the world champions out of Houston. So you got to
Hmm.
look this guy up, man.
Huh.
He has open sessions for people that want to try speed golf and get exposed to this totally different sport than the slow going, uh, non-athletic sport that we all know that golf is. And so I've been enjoying doing that, and that takes some endurance. But when I broke this Guinness World Record, it was sort of a special offshoot event where the hole has to be a minimum length of 500 yards, but they have a clock, and it's just who can play the hole the fastest. And this record was held by a gentleman in the United Kingdom. I found the video on YouTube. His name is Steve Jeffs, Guinness World Record. You can find him setting the record. And I was captivated by, this opportunity to formally apply to break a Guinness World Record. And I practiced really hard. And then I had a couple attempts, and it was just wonderful to do something that was so different from my triathlon experience, which is all about endurance and going for hours on end and training all day and just building up that aerobic engine. And now I feel like I'm a sprinter. I'm a high jumper. I'm ranked in the USA Masters 55 plus in the high jump. And, these require completely different training methods, much more discipline and devotion to flexibility, mobility, balance, explosiveness, and not so much of that extreme endurance stuff that actually can easily turn out to be unhealthy due to the extreme nature of it.
Mm-hmm. And so with the speed golf, there's one hole, many holes. How do you do that?
So the proper speed golf tournament is just like a golf tournament where
Mm-hmm.
you play 18 holes and you keep score, but they also click the stopwatch when you start off on the first hole, and they time your trip around the course. So when you finish your final hole, the 18th, your clock stops, and they look how many minutes it took you to complete the course and how many strokes, and you add it together. So, for example, the best score I've ever had in a tournament, I took third in the California Professional Speed Golf Championships. I shot a 78 on a championship golf course in 47 minutes.
Hmm.
And I was carrying 5 clubs and moving. That's about 5 miles. So if you think about
Huh.
the pace we're
Okay.
running, you're running at a pretty good pace, but not too fast. We're not running like crazy because when you get to that shot, you have to hit it straight. You take so much more time if you're in the sand trap versus on the green and putting and going to the next hole. So the winners, the top guys like Dolly, are shooting around par on a championship golf course.
Hmm. Wow.
Just like a pro level player, but running around with only a handful of clubs. And so The sport has become, really refined and sophisticated. Not a lot of people do it, but the best guys in the world are really amazing athletes. And I'm right there, a little step behind them, because 78 is a great score for me as a golfer. I can't do much better when I take all day, and I'm moving pretty quickly. But, I'm one of the older guys in the professional pack, and it's just so much
Cool.
fun to, try to get better and better at this really bizarre sport that requires a whole bunch of disparate athletic skills. And same with the high jump. When I was in high school, I was one of those skinny little runner geeks that ran in circles around the track. But for some reason, I was attracted to this wonderful and complex event, the high jump. I wasn't any good. I would practice with the girls because the varsity guys were jumping, over their heads, 6 feet, 6'6", 6'8", and I just wanted to improve my technique, have some fun myself. I'd wander over to the high jump pit after we did our grueling workouts and, we're cooled down, and I wanted to do something else fun. And so anytime I've had a chance in my adult life, I was coaching the middle school athletes in track. So I'd demonstrate the high jump for the kids. And I just, wanted to get more and more into it, practice more and more. And so now it's like my main goal is to try to continue to, improve on the Masters high jump competitions. And it's just, it's something to keep me going. And I really am in favor of maintaining passion and competitive intensity throughout life. So just because I was an athlete 25 years ago and have all these stories and pictures on my wall, so many of us have that sort of experience where you had your day, you like to talk about back in the day. Yeah, I could have played for UT, but my shoulder got hurt in practice and that was it. And everyone's got a story and a background and memories, and we're working off of that rather than what's going on in present day. So I feel like all of us can benefit from keeping that little edge going for the rest of our life and having something that wakes you up in the morning and gets you excited about training and being physical and setting a goal and trying to get better, even if it's something silly like my speed golf story or doing Masters high jump. I mean, I'm not in front of a packed stadium of cheering fans, and it has no comparison to, let's say, winning a big race on the professional circuit where I'm on ESPN and I'm getting a big giant check, on the award stage, and it seems more important and all that. But to me, it feels the same as, competing in the national championship back in the day. It feels the same now when I hop the fence and sneak into the empty high school stadium to practice the high jump in front of nobody. And when I clear the bar, you can see me on YouTube. I have a few high jump videos up there, but on one particular one, I clear the bar and I let out this scream, and it was just this primal scream. I didn't even realize I did it until I'm watching the video, and I'm just so excited. And there's so much intensity to my goal of jumping over this silly bar. But I mean, it's magic when you can get something like that and cultivate it and keep it going no matter what. Even if you're working with, a body that doesn't quite work as well as it did when you were 25, there's still something to be said for pursuing goals and pushing your boundaries.
And it shows what's possible. I think some people think once you get over 30 or whatever, you can't really do anything athletically. You get all weak and whatever. But no, be the best you can be. It's good for you. It's good for those you love, good for those you care about. As we talked about, makes you smarter, healthier, sets a good example, makes the most of life. So do it. Don't just give up. Be the best you can be through your whole entire life, not just maybe when you're 20 or whatever.
Yeah, and one thing comes to mind when we're talking about the kids, and the kids aren't exercising enough, and the schools aren't emphasizing it enough, and the adults aren't setting a good example. One thing that I've seen in the fitness industry,
you're setting a good example.
Some people are, but what we see in the fitness industry is this emphasis on the extreme nature of fitness and the struggling and suffering that's necessary to get fit, and the complexity. And this is all because people are selling products and services, and it's become industry full of hype and excess. And so you see the commercial of the girl riding on the Peloton bike, and she's really super sweaty, and she's pushing really hard, and then she high fives the person next to her. And you can do that too if you buy this super expensive machine and push yourself to your dripping sweat and about to collapse. And really,
Permanent
a lot of people are intimidated by that.
Yeah.
Some people will buy right into it, and they're the ones that already have a Carol bike or a Peloton bike, and that's great. Congratulations, keep going. And we don't need to encourage you or pat you on the back. You're already off and running, and you're living that lifestyle, just like the kids at the front of the pack I mentioned. But for the rest of us who have been intimidated or discouraged by their pursuit of fitness because their trainer was just too gung-ho, and they trained him, and they got sore and tired, and after 4 months they quit and they didn't buy a new package, and now they're sitting on the couch. I think the rest of us can think how easy it is to become fit is just to sprinkle in these little tiny efforts of what I call micro workouts throughout the day. So even if you're sitting in a cubicle and you don't have any room or any good gym nearby, or you're forced to work at home and you can't go to your gym, you can drop for a set of 20 deep squats on the spot right now. And I don't care how fit you are, when you get to number 16, 17, 18, 19, you'll feel the burn. It's a challenging effort to just do 20 squats in place in your cubicle, not to mention scrambling up a couple flights of stairs instead of just walking them. Try to sprint a couple flights of stairs every day, or, hang off a pull-up bar, pull some stretch cords, do the little mini bands that you put around your ankles. You can get a really challenging and beneficial workout in a matter of minutes where it doesn't exhaust you. You don't have that negativity and that risk factors of overdoing it that you do in the group exercise world, the gym environment. And then you start to build that momentum to where it becomes part of your lifestyle that you actually enjoy, and it's convenient, and it has all these peripheral benefits that you can't even describe. You just feel better, and you're more light on your feet than you are when you sit for long periods of time and experience the massive problems and metabolic dysfunction that occurs when we're sitting for too long.
Yeah, and that's something. It's a good point. People can do that in the classroom. Teachers can do it in professional meetings. Leader of a meeting can have people do that, or someone could bring it up. In offices, as we say, we're not simple linear systems. Like the more you sit down and do nothing but work, the better you'll be. We're complex, dynamic feedback systems. And the research is out there. People find if you're actually move around a little bit, you're going to be healthier, think better, your memory will function better. When we're sitting, it's more like a sleep state. So some of the parts of the brain shut down. And I've read your blood chemistry changes too. When you're standing up, moving around, you got better blood chemistry. When you're sitting down, I think it changes. And you've got more core muscles, the butt, all that activated if you're standing up, moving around a little bit at a stand-up desk sometimes versus if you're sitting. Like Kelly Starrett, he'll point that out, how using a cell phone wrong, sitting too much, it doesn't help your performance. People want to sit and do nothing. It's like they're sleeping all the time. And then all of a sudden they want to get up and exercise for half an hour. And it's like the body's not ready in a state for it. So yeah, when you're doing that, the micro workouts, it helps. What other ways? Like, how would that help people? How could they do it? What are some suggestions you have for classroom or boardroom, parents at home, people at home?
Yeah, thanks. I think there's two main objectives that are really simple and doable. And one of them is that we have to find ways to increase all forms of general everyday movement. The most prominent one is walking. So we have to find ways to walk more every single day. I always recommend, if you're driving over to the supermarket or the big box store, just enter the parking lot and turn left and go to the farthest spot you can find. You won't get any door dings either, which is another added benefit, but get in the habit of walking further instead of trolling around and causing a traffic jam looking for a close spot. It's hilarious. I love when I see that in the parking lot of the gym where people are like waiting for someone to pull out and getting the choice spot so they can walk into a building and then go do a workout on a treadmill or something. So this natural exercise, this natural movement, you probably follow Katie Bowman, nutritiousmovement.com.
Yeah,
she's
awesome.
Really big on just a natural movement lifestyle. She has a book called Move Your DNA. And it's not about working out and being a fitness freak and building big muscles and getting a six-pack. It's just about moving your body more through space in everyday life. So there's walking, and there's also all other forms of movement contribute to your movement goal. So that could be formal practices like yoga, Pilates. Even foam rolling counts as a form of movement because you're getting the blood flowing through the different muscles. And so if you want to watch a show at night and relax at the end of the day, then do some rolling out with the rolling tube while you're engaging in, passive digital entertainment. But walking would be number one in that category. And the key thing about this objective, this regular movement objective, is that cardiovascular exercise contributes to this too, but we have to make sure that we're not doing it at too difficult of a heart rate. And most people in the gyms, most people on the roads of the world training for distance running are going a little bit too hard to have maximum health benefits. And they're drifting out of the fat burning zone and tiptoeing into the glucose burning, the anaerobic heart rates, where it's a little bit too fatiguing to, build your fat burning capacity, boost your immune function, and all these wonderful benefits that you get from cardiovascular exercise. So I'm going to say to most listeners, slowing down your cardio workouts and walking more will get you much fitter without the drawbacks of, doing it to excess and that struggling and suffering mentality that's been programmed into our minds in the fitness industry. Same with a group cycling class. You go in there, the music's blasting, the instructor's super enthusiastic and telling you to sprint to another top of another hill for the Tour de France. Okay, we have one more mountain to climb. You guys are doing awesome. But that overly stressful workout repeated too frequently can really trash your fitness and trash your health. Instead of doing the desired effect. So things should be easy and feel comfortable, and you're moving and moving. But then, like I said, there's a second objective here, and that is to push the top end and put your body under resistance load by performing explosive movement now and then. The best one is sprinting. Some people are limited in their, impact ability, impact trauma. So you can't be very well going out to the stadium now and running sprints, but you can certainly do low or no impact sprinting, such as sprinting on a bicycle or any type of cardio machine in the gym, or running up a hill or running up a staircase and counting that for your sprint, and eventually working toward being able to actually sprint on flat ground. That has wonderful benefits for bone density, fat reduction. There's nothing better for fat loss than even a short sprint workout is better than hours of cardio, and the science backs this up. So we want to do hard stuff that's short in duration, and then we want to do a lot of gentle movement. And so the explosive stuff, I'm also talking about resistance training, putting your body under some form of resistance load, whether it's weight machines or pulling the straps, even doing body weight exercises like lowering for that deep squat or doing push-ups. All that contributes toward your resistance training objective. And that will help us maintain muscle mass, which is correlated with maintaining good organ function as we age, delaying the aging process rather than letting it accelerate if we don't preserve our muscle mass and our explosive power. And so if you can just narrow your focus into those two objectives, boy, it's not strenuous. It's not going to wear you out like a commitment to group classes are, or, extreme training for the endurance events. And it's within reach of everybody.
Mm-hmm. And and while this is something I think coaches should do, some of it's not their fault. The culture we live in, the education, the way they're trained, kind of the systematic stuff you're talking about earlier. If coaches would learn some of this, they'd be better off. Like, for example, someone I know who plays football at a top Division I school in the South, they don't program for sleep well enough or put enough distance and time between intense workouts. So, for example, he noticed that his leg strength was getting weaker. They work out too much. They don't hit it hard and then rest. So I forgot what he said, squat, leg press was actually going down through the weeks, not up, or keeping strong through the season. Someone I know at a high school, he did a PR, I think, in the deadlift. And unfortunately, this coach, instead of saying good job, he said, hey, do more. You just do a PR and then you want more, and then he blew out his back. So we got to be more careful about what we believe by some coaches. Yes, teachers and coaches for the most part, there's always the weirdos, but they love what they're doing. They're trying hard. However, there's some systematic things, some errors in thinking that we need to address and fix. So, yeah, some of those things you're talking about, I think would help coaches, athletes, teachers, individuals, parents. Parents can put pressure on coaches or athletes. We need more time to rest or whatever.
Good. Yeah.
It's their kid after all, not the coaches.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, going with my son through that accelerated sporting experience in the youth levels, EAU basketball, you have to be an advocate because the world's not going to be looking out for your kid, and sometimes that means making waves and calling attention to things that don't smell right. I remember there were fires in the area, and there was a stage 1 smog alert, and one of my kids' teams announced that the league said we're going to still try to play the games. We're going to try to squeeze in a few games, and I felt bad about it, but you kind of go with the flow and the momentum, and you're not going to let your team down. And everyone else says, okay, I guess the game's still on. We might as well go play. And my son was coughing for weeks after that, for weeks from inhaling that smoke. And then you realize, you do the research that, in a developing cardiovascular system is much more sensitive to pollution than an adult. An adult can choke that stuff out and do much better. Same with heat. So an adult who gets overheated will sweat like crazy and stop exercising. But a little kid who doesn't have those thermoregulatory processes well developed, they can really get into worse danger overheating than an adult and have long-term damage. So yeah, just a little plug for common sense and going with your gut instinct as a parent, even if it means standing up to the cultural forces that push us too far. And same with youth sports in general. A lot of it's too accelerate. So we have overly accelerated, overly pressurized competitive experience in youth sports, or we have a bunch of unfit youth sitting home playing video games, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of in between, and that's pretty tough to see.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I got to start a class in 2 minutes. I hate it. Too much to say. Too much important information to cover still. Too good of a conversation. But everything's limited and finite.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Everyone can come visit me at bradkearns.com, listen to the Get Over Yourself podcast. And it's been a pleasure. I appreciate what you're doing with the Reason RX. Keep it up.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll put links to your stuff in the show notes for folks.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
All right. Awesome. Thank you very much, Brad. Appreciate it.
All right.